So it's been almost 2.5 years since I've had any real shows. Finally, I'm proud to announce that I've got a run of shows coming up. Between July and August and into September, I've got some shows coming up with Noah, Guthrie, and Good Trouble. And the first round of shows are fly dates. We're gonna be flying out to Austin, Texas on July 14th for 2 shows out in Texas. And it's time to start getting my rig put together. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you know that back in 2018, I flew out to Oakland, California and had Mason Marangella build me my touring board. And that board has served me very, very well since then, but it's actually kind of in a state of disrepair. So first off, I actually forgot about this, but my Mobius, I lost one of the nuts and washers here, so this I had to fix right before the show. Borrowed some gaff tape from the monitor engineer just to hold that switch, so that needs to get fixed. But also the pedal board interface that I made is no longer functioning. I think that's got a cold solder joint somewhere, and the bridge itself is actually bent under here, and it's causing the foot switch on the light speed to get hit. Now, I don't have the time or the resources right now to devote to building another proper touring rig like that. That'll happen a few months from now, but I need to get something together. And since I haven't played really in 2 years, I don't have a current board that's fit for travel. So in today's video, we're gonna build a fly rig. This board is gonna be lightweight, it's gonna be super versatile, super powerful, and allow me to cover all of the different types of situations that I'm gonna find myself in over the next 2 months of gigging. Now, before we jump in, if you want to know when and where I'm going to be playing, I'll have a link to all of the show dates in the description. And while you're down there, you can check out my brand new mini course that we're getting ready to launch, the Pentatonic Breakout course. This is a course designed to help break you out of the pentatonic box and get you soloing and improvising all over the neck. This is a mini course, which means it's designed to be taken in 1 to 2 sittings. You can find some pre-order pricing down there. All right, with all that out of the way, let's take a look at what we're going to be building today. So in December of 2019, I had my last real tour. With Noah and Good Trouble, we went over to the Netherlands for 2.5 or 3 weeks, and we toured 10 or 11 shows through that country, and did a recording session with my friend Tice, aka Roofman, and this was the board that I built for that run. Super powerful, super compact, and it did incredibly well. Now, the HX Effects is the brains of this operation. It's doing most of the heavy lifting, and I tacked on 2 analog overdrives on the side. I don't think I had the Revival drive on at the time, but can't really remember. Now, the board itself is the Pedal Train Metro 16, and I bought this board because it was perfectly sized for the HX Effects and the 2 pedals. And then to power it, I bought a Chalks DC7 because it fits perfectly underneath the board. Now, you might be asking, why not just use this again? It worked super well. I love the HX Effects. I have one on my studio board as well. But the problem is, for some of these shows coming up, I'm gonna need to be able to go direct and have a really good amp sim sound. So I could go HX Stomp. I have an HX Stomp that I could throw on the board, but instead, I'm gonna go Quad Cortex. One, just out of curiosity, since this thing came out, I haven't had an opportunity to use it live, to actually put it through its paces and get to know it in a live gigging situation, and I want to. It's one thing to play at home where you can take your time and dial in sounds and presets and all that stuff, but it's another thing to actually use it live, especially in a festival situation or an opening slot where you have to have your rig dialed in and ready to go. So we're going to use this as the brain, which conveniently is almost identical in size to the HX Effects, so it should slip right on top of that board and leave me room for 2 other pedals on the side. I'm going to take all this stuff downstairs and start putting this board together. Okay, so I'm down here in my little workshop area. Apologize for the noise. It's about 1 billion degrees outside here in Georgia, and my AC is running. There's nothing I can do about it. So I went ahead and stripped the board down upstairs, and I'm gonna start with just trying to get everything laid out, getting everything attached to the board with dual lock, and then I have to swap out the power cables on the bottom of the DC7 to make it work, because line 6 uses a different power jack, power connector than your typical 9-volt Boss power supply. So we gotta get that figured out. So I think, okay. Somewhere in this bag is the power cable that I need. So the interesting thing about the Chalk power supplies is they don't use your typical Boss style connector here. Instead, they use an RCA style barrel connection. And as a result, you have to use their cables, which I'm just now realizing I don't have, which means they're probably buried in a box. One moment. I'm not even going to tell you how long that took. Doesn't matter. So this is what we need. So you see typical Boss style connector here, and then RCA style connector on the other side. If I remember correctly, Quad Cortex, yeah, 12 volt DC, 3 amps. So it's not coming on, which means probably don't have enough current. Okay, so I was doing some research. You can power the Quad Cortex with the DC7 from Chalks, but you're gonna need some extra adapters. Now I have one of these right now. This is an adapter from Chalks, and what this does is combine 2 of the power output jacks into one. And I was able to power the HX effects off of just one of these by combining 2 power outputs into one. But the Quad Cortex, as you can see right here, says 12 volts DC, 3 amps. So I don't think just 2 of these jacks are going to power it because they're 500 milliamp each, which means that is 1 amp. So instead, what I saw online is you actually need 3 of these, and you combine 4 outputs into 2, and then you take your third 2 into 1 and plug that into 1. So I'm gonna have to order 2 more of these, which means I won't be able to fully complete the build today, but what I can do is get the board built, get the signal cables all wired together, and then test it out with the actual wall wart power supply for the Quad Cortex. All right, so there's really only one way to lay out this board, and it's something like this. Quad Cortex flush up against the side with a little extra space here for 2 pedals. Now, the 2 pedals that I'm gonna be running are the Overhive from Beatronics as a really great all-around overdrive. This thing's a lot of fun, tons of character, and it works well with a variety of amps. And then a Fuzz, which is the AU79 from Mythos. Now, this works for 2 reasons. One, the size is perfect. It's gonna live right up here on that top row. But 2, this is a really, really great all-around fuzz that, like the Overhive, works well with a variety of different amplifiers. Now, I may end up swapping these out depending on how I'm feeling or what amps I'm gonna be playing into, but for now, I think that's what I'm gonna go with. So the first thing I need to do is throw some dual lock on the bottom of the Quad Cortex because there is none currently. All right, there we go. The other reason I like using the dual lock is whenever you get it actually placed on the board, you have a slight gap in between. So it can actually be a cool place to run really thin like power cables and things like that. So it's not flush mounted directly on the board itself. So I've got just enough space around the pedals for the signal cables for the 1/4-inch jacks, the instrument cables, and for the power connections. And everything is tucked inside the board. All right, so I've got my power cabling run underneath the board. I'm gonna use some zip ties and some tie downs to keep everything nice and tidy. Everything should have power though. Now in the description, I'm gonna link some of the common supplies that I use whenever I'm putting pedal boards together. One of them is a bag of these. These are the marine grade 1x1 inch cable tie downs. You want the marine grade ones because the quality of adhesive that they use is much stronger on the marine grade tie downs than it is on the normal ones you get from like Home Depot. So they're great. You just stick them all over the bottom of your board, and then you use zip ties to keep everything nice and tidy. Now it's time to start thinking about signal cabling, 1/4-inch cable, how you're gonna get signal from your guitar into your board and out of your board to your amplifier. I'm actually seeing a potential problem that needs to be focused on first, and that is this. So if you look, I've got all these foot switches easily available here on this bottom row. What happens when I need to get up to my fuzz pedal, to kick that on and off, I'm going to end up stepping on the top of the overhive here and messing with controls, possibly breaking switches. So I need to do something about this. Now the great thing about the Quad Cortex is I have 2 effects loops available to me. Now I think I'm going to use one of those effects loops to run the fuzz, meaning I will just leave the fuzz pedal on, and then I'll assign its effects loop to one of the switches on the Quad Cortex. So rather than having to hit the foot switch on the fuzz, I'll hit a foot switch on the Quad Cortex and toggle it on and off that way. I think I'm going to plan on plugging my guitar into the side of the overhive. That'll be my input point. And I'll go out of the overhive into the Quad Cortex itself, and then out of the Quad Cortex's main mono output into the amplifier. Or if I need to go DI and use one of the amp sims in the Quad Cortex, I can just use the XLR outs and have the same effect. Okay, so I took some extra patch cables I had laying around and I got it soldered in here. And since I'm only using one of the effects loops, I decided to just go with the right angle plugs for now to test it out. I did make one of the straight and right angle plug cables, and I'll probably make some more later, but for now, since I'm just using the one effects loop, I can get away with the 2 right angle plugs, and it gives me a much more flush end, which I like. There's not as much risk of things getting stepped on, the cables getting stepped on and pulling out of the jacks or ripping the jack out. So for now, that's what I'm gonna go run. And let's go upstairs, test it out, make sure it works, and start capturing some pedals and setting up some of my basic sounds with this rig. Okay, so just testing out the rig, what I did is built a basic starter effects preset here, and I'm going from my Shabbat links into the pedal board and then into my RSA 23 from Divided by 13, because that's probably going to be the amp that I take out on these upcoming shows. So my plan here is to start with this basic effects setup and then copy and paste it to a few different presets and tweak each one for different songs. Some of Noah's songs are more straight ahead, just meat and potatoes guitar kind of sounds, where other than like an overdrive or a boost, I'm not using anything. And then some of them are pretty effect intensive. Some things that we did on the record, you know, utilizing a lot of tremolo and delay and reverb and things like that. So I'll be able to bank through and pick a preset for each one. Now, another thing that's cool about the Quad Cortex is being able to essentially capture some of my other pedals. Because this board is so small, there's some things that I want to add here, like the Zio from Source Audio. I really love what this pedal does, but there's no room for it. So what I did is created a capture. Now, I've got it set up right now so that we can A/B the capture that I just made. And we'll start with the actual pedal, and then I've got the capture set up into this channel right here. So we'll A/B between them. And I think it got pretty close. I mean, it's definitely close enough for a live gig. Now, if you really put that up under a microscope, you can probably hear some differences. But as a utility, to be able to capture those sounds of the pedals that I like to use most often, it's great. So I'm going to go through and capture a good number of my boosts and drive. I'm going to do the broadcast AP next. then the Mythos Mjolnir, and save that in here so that I have plenty of options to work from when it comes to using a backline amp, one of my amps, or using one of the actual amp captures. So this is a standalone modeling rig. Okay, so here it is, completed and ready to go. I'm actually really proud of how this thing came out. I think this is going to be a really useful fly rig for me. And the other nice thing is, because it's on this pedal train board, it actually fits in my flight case. So I can just afford to bring one case for everything. It flies my pedal board and all my cables and everything, which is super convenient. So I'm going to be capturing more of my pedals and a few of my amps with this rig. So if you have a Quad Cortex and you're on the Neural app, the actual app, you can follow me there. I'll be uploading all of these captures so you can download them to your Quad Cortex if you like. And if you're going to build something like this at home, check the description because I've got links to all of the gear that I use to make this rig, both the pedal board, the pedals, as well as the cable tie downs, the zip ties, all that stuff. Don't forget to check the dates down there as well and come see us. If we're playing near you at some point in the next couple months, I'd love to see you at a show. Again, it's Noah Guthrie and Good Trouble. You can find those links down below, as well as links to my new mini course, the Pentatonic Breakout course. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Rhett Shull, and remember, there is no plan B.